Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into the work of the 2025 Pritzker Prize winner.
Always ready for a deep dive, especially with someone like Liu Jiakun.
Right. And we've got this fantastic article from ADC News. It's in Chinese from March 4th, 2025. Not only celebrates the award, but gives a really interesting look at how China views its top architects.
Oh, absolutely. It's a unique perspective for sure.
So today, let's try to uncover what makes Liu's work so unique, what makes it resonate all over the world, and, hopefully dig up some surprising details about his approach. What do you say?
Sounds like a plan. And, the article jumps right in with his kind of unusual path to becoming this big name architect. If you're someone who, hasn't followed a straight line in life, I think you'll relate.
Oh, I love those stories. Tell me more.
All right, so picture this. Liu, born in Chengdu, 1956, comes from a family of doctors.
Okay, medical family.
Yeah, but he's drawn to the creative arts instead. And eventually a teacher, not at all. But I wonder, did that early love for the arts, did it shape his later work?
That's a good question.
It's something to keep in mind as we go. Now picture this. Liu's studying at the Chungking Institute of Architecture and Engineering. Graduates in '82.
Okay.
This is right when China's rebuilding after the Cultural Revolution. Can you imagine? The pressure, the possibilities for a young architect then.
Must have been an intense time to enter the field.
Absolutely. So he graduates, gets assigned to the Chengdu Architectural Design Institute, but then he does something unexpected.
Okay, what's that?
Volunteers for a stint in Nagpur, Tibet, from '84 to '86.
Wow, that's a big jump, especially early in your career. What do you think drew him to such a remote place?
The article doesn't really say why, but it makes you wonder, right? Does it hint at a desire to understand different cultures, different environments, which, becomes a real hallmark of his later work? But here's where things get even more interesting. After Tibet, Liu almost gives up on architecture completely.
Really? What happened?
Yeah, seems like he was feeling disillusioned. But then, in 1993, something rekindles that passion.
What was it?
An exhibition by his university classmate, Tang Hua, at the Shanghai Art Museum. A real turning point. Liu realized that architecture could be so much more than just, functional buildings. It was like a wake-up call.
So this exhibition, it was like a reminder of the power of art and design.
Exactly. And from that moment, something shifted in Liu's approach. He starts interacting with these artists, Luo Zhongli, He Duoling, even the poet Zhai Yangming.
Wow, interesting mix.
Right. He's seeking to understand how literature could intersect with architecture. Like he's pushing beyond the traditional boundaries.
It's definitely a period of huge intellectual growth.
Absolutely. And it's during this time that he develops his unique approach, one that really emphasizes the power of architecture, but also stays grounded in community, in spirit, traditions, the realities of the moment.
That's fascinating.
It is. And that eventually leads him to establish his own firm, Jiakun Architects, in Chengdu in '99.
Wow, what a foundation for a career. But I'm curious, how does all this translate into the actual buildings? Does he have like a signature style?
That's the thing with Liu. He doesn't have a fixed style, something he repeats from project to project.
Yeah.
Every design is unique, tailored to the specific site, the community's needs. In fact, he describes his approach as being like water.
Like water. Okay, I'm intrigued. What does he mean by that?
Well, there's this quote in the article. He says, "I've always aspired to be like water, not confined to any fixed form, seeping into the local environment and site." Suggests a real fluidity in his process.
I love that image, but how does that translate into concrete and steel? Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. Let's look at the West Village complex in Chengdu, finished in 2015.
Okay, West Village? I'm picturing it. What makes it so special?
Well, it's a 5-story structure, spans an entire city block, but it doesn't feel imposing at all. Instead, it's connected to everything around it, really organic.
Okay.
And get this, Liu blended cultural, sports, entertainment, public service, commercial activities, all in this one space.
That's a lot to pack in. How did he manage all of that without it feeling chaotic?
That's where the water idea really comes in. He created these interconnected spaces. They flow seamlessly, courtyards, walkways, rooftop gardens, all blurring the lines between inside and outside. And he used traditional elements, but in a modern way. Local materials, craftsmanship, giving it that rooted feeling.
So it's not just a building, it's like an ecosystem.
Exactly. And he did all of this in a really dense part of Chengdu, proving that density and openness aren't opposites.
That's a pretty powerful statement about urban living.
It is. It's a new model, one that focuses on connection, diversity, belonging, and it's resonating with people all over the world who are tired of that isolating feeling you get in some cities.
This is fascinating, but can we break down how he actually did it? I want to understand the design choices that brought this to life.
Of course, let's take a closer look.
So we're getting a good sense of that water-like approach, how he brings together all these different sides of city life. But the article also talks about his respect for culture, for history, for nature. How does that show up in his buildings?
Ah, that's a great point. It's subtle, but you see it in the way he uses traditional Chinese elements, the materials. But he reinterprets them, gives them a modern twist. It's not about just copying the past. It's like a conversation with it.
I like that, a conversation. Can you do me an example? How does he actually do that?
Okay, picture the Suzhou Imperial Kiln Museum, finished in 2016. Imagine the roofline, those eaves. They're long and flat, almost like they're floating. It's a nod to those ancient pavilions, but with a clean, modern feel.
Oh, I see. So he's taking these traditional forms, but simplifying them, making them feel connected to the past, but also very much of the present.
Exactly. And it's not just the big things. Think about the Beiluan Wetland Park, that Languaqui Pavilion in Chengdu, finished in 2013. The window walls there, they're like a modern take on traditional latticework. The way they filter the light, it's almost like those delicate patterns you'd see on old Chinese screens.
So even something functional, like a window, becomes this opportunity to connect with tradition. It sounds like he's incredibly thoughtful about every little detail.
Oh, he really is. And here's another one. Those cascading balconies on the Novartis Shanghai campus building C6, finished in 2014. They're not just balconies. They're like a series of platforms stepping down the building's facade, almost like a waterfall.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's his interpretation of those multi-tiered pavilions you see in old Chinese paintings, but with a contemporary twist.
Wow, that must create such a cool sense of movement, of energy. It's like he's breathing life into these structures.
And, the Pritzker jury, they specifically called out his ability to blend those local and global dimensions in a way no one's done before. He's taking this rich Chinese heritage, but creating something that speaks to everyone, everywhere.
That's amazing. So we've talked about his philosophy, how he uses those traditional elements, but I'm curious about his material choices. The article mentions that tactile, honest nature of his architecture. What does that even mean?
It means Liu loves traditional craftsmanship, using locally sourced materials whenever he can. It's not just about looks, it's about sustainability, lessening the environmental impact, and it's about supporting those local communities, keeping those building techniques alive.
Right, that makes sense. But what's it actually like to be in one of his buildings?
Okay, imagine the sculpture department teaching building at the Sichuan Fine Arts Institute in Chongqing, finished in 2004. You know how some modern buildings are all smooth, almost sterile?
Yeah.
Not this one. Liu kept those unpolished swirls you get in that traditional Chongqing mortar plasterwork.
So he's showcasing the imperfections, the handmade quality.
Yeah. Embracing that natural beauty, the human touch. And this respect for materials, it goes even further with his Rebirth Brick project.
Rebirth brick, what's that?
It came about after that awful Wenchuan earthquake in 2008. Instead of just tossing out all the debris, Liu saw an opportunity. He recycled the rubble, mixed it with local wheat straw, fiber, and cement, and made bricks that were even stronger, more economical than the originals.
That's incredible, taking something broken and giving it new life.
It's a statement about resilience, finding hope in the face of disaster. And the Pritzker jury, they noticed. They praised his use of appropriate technology when it comes to materials and craftsmanship. It's not about the fanciest gadgets. It's about finding the best, most sustainable solutions, working with nature, respecting those traditions.
It sounds like it allows his buildings to age gracefully, holding on to those stories, those memories. It's almost poetic.
It is. And speaking of poetry, do you know Liu is also a writer?
Really? No, I had no idea.
He's got books like Moonlight Thoughts, exploring those big ideas, utopian ideals versus the reality of being human. Questions about how we make a better world, the role of art, of architecture in society.
Wow, that's amazing. Never would have guessed a world-renowned architect would also be, like, a philosopher.
Right. It makes you wonder how that writing side of him influences his buildings. Does he see them as a way to bring those utopian ideals to life, create those spaces that foster community?
That's a good question. Maybe his writing informs those narratives he builds into his work, adding layers of meaning that go beyond just function.
It's possible. And here's another little tidbit. His office, it's on the top floor of a residential building in Chengdu's Yulin district. And he has 3 cats there, Lu Wawa, Lu Duidui, and Lu Xiaosan.
Wait, his cats are named after him? That's so cute. It makes him seem so down to earth.
It does, right? Reminds you that behind all the awards, he's just a regular guy who loves cats. And speaking of simple pleasures, his team, they have this annual Jiakun cooking competition.
A cooking competition. I love it.
Their motto is, to build in Chengdu, you must first have a delicious mouth.
That's hilarious. I love how they incorporate their love of food into their work. Sounds like a fun team.
It does. It speaks to that sense of community, enjoying life together. And that extends beyond just his team. Liu also runs an exhibition space, Yulanson. It's a place for dialogue, for showcasing all sorts of artists and architects.
It's like he's not just building structures, but these platforms for connection, for breaking down those barriers.
Exactly. Liu's a true multi-faceted architect, writer, community builder. And it's that holistic view that makes his work so meaningful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Liu Jiakun, what stands out to you as his most significant contributions?
That's a tough one. There's so many, honestly. But I think one of the biggest things is how he challenges our ideas about what architecture even is. You know, we tend to think of buildings as these fixed, unmoving things.
Right?
He's shown us that they can be dynamic, almost fluid, poetic even.
And not just visually, but the way they connect to history, culture, nature. It's like he's crafting experiences, not just structure.
Exactly. He reminds us that it's not just about shelter or function, but about creating places that enrich our lives, that bring people together, that connect us to something bigger.
And he does all of this while staying so grounded in his own culture, his heritage. It's like he's taking those traditions of Chinese architecture, but reinterpreting them for today.
That's what's so compelling, right? He's bridging those worlds, showing us that you can honor the past and still embrace the future, create something personal yet universal.
It's really inspiring. And it makes you wonder, if we zoom out, beyond the individual buildings, what's the overall message Liu Jiakun is trying to send with his work?
That's a good question. I think he's offering us a glimpse of a different kind of future, one that's more human, more sustainable. A future where architecture isn't about ego or these grand statements, but about spaces that feed our souls, that connect us to nature.
Yeah, and that vision, it's in everything he does, the materials he chooses, his dedication to the community. It's like he's building bridges between people, between the past, present, and future.
And maybe, most importantly, he's making us rethink what utopia even means. Maybe it's not this far-off dream, but something we can create right now through small, thoughtful choices that make life better day by day.
That's a powerful thought to end on. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I urge everyone listening to go check out images of Liu's work online. Use the Chinese names we've mentioned to find the right ones. You won't be disappointed.
Definitely. And remember, this is just the start. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, nurture that curiosity. There's a whole world of incredible architecture out there just waiting to be discovered.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the work of Liu Jiakun. It's been a pleasure exploring his world with you.